Lesson 1, Analytics and Dataviz Tools. The fast-moving market for analytics tools allows analysts to collect, monitor, and analyze digital data like never before, and these capabilities are growing every single day. That is one of the things that makes this market just so exciting, the fast-moving set of tools that are coming in and, frankly, moving out of this market. 5 things that are important for us to know. The data analytics and visualization tool market is a fast-moving field of established providers and new entrants. Adopting a way to think broadly about the market is much more important than being up to speed on the top tools, right? We want to provide a framework for how we think about this market because it is, again, so dynamic and changing all the time. There are 2 evaluation criteria, data density and ease of use, that we'll use to provide a powerful framework for evaluating that market. And a simple way to look at analytics tools is through the lens of data density that assigns for you as the analyst which tool to use in which analytics problem. And this framework reveals really 3 categories: enterprise packages, point solutions, and finally, analysis gadgets, and we'll get into all of those now. So starting with this idea of data density, look, the tool market, as I've said, includes a vast number of providers. These tools are very, very different. One of the ways that I like to think of them is data density, which allows me to assess how much power, how much data horsepower I need in the tool that I'm using against a particular analysis challenge. When you think about how much data a tool can use, you really do find these 3 primary categories. There are enterprise platforms, those things that really do everything, soups to nuts, that you would want to have done in your analytics endeavors. And they handle a great deal of data, so they would score high data density marks. In the middle are these things called point solutions. They probably do 1 or 2 things really, really well and can handle a good amount of data. Not as much as an enterprise platform, for sure. But still, it is a tool that as an analyst, we can use in a one-off fashion or as a go-to tool to do specific things. Finally, there are just a flood of free, low-cost tools that, frankly, can't handle a great deal of data. It's the reason that they are so accessible. These we would call analysis gadgets. And for low data density needs, these are the tools that an analyst should get familiar with and use pretty readily. Let's take a look at each of those different types of tools. On the platform side, look, these are the brands that you've come to recognize and know. This is IBM, this is Adobe, this is Google Analytics. These are the companies that are providing large enterprise-level analytics solutions to typically large companies. And they're typically large companies because these packages, these platforms can carry pretty significant price tags. I mean, you're talking about 6-figure annual licensing fees for some of these. They are worth the money. Believe me, if you are an analyst lucky enough to work with one of these enterprise tools, you can see the vast capability that it has and all the great insight that it can deliver to you. And it can work on a tremendous amount of data. Again, very high data density behind these tools. But if you are not fortunate enough to work with a company that has the kind of resources to invest in this, there are still many answers. This is where you can look to point solutions. These point solutions, rather than doing kind of the end-to-end, meeting the end-to-end needs of an analyst, they rather focus on one or maybe just a handful of particular analytics challenges and do those things very well. And regardless of what you want to do, what challenge you are facing, you will find a vendor that has a tool that you can invest in for typically low cost to get that analysis challenge met. And that could be multivariate A/B testing, it could be attribution modeling and media mix modeling, site optimization, media optimization. The list really goes on and on. These tools are able to handle a good amount of data because their scope has been reduced somewhat. Certainly not as large as a enterprise sort of solution, but certainly larger than what we would call an analysis gadget. Now these analysis gadgets, you see a number of these kind of pop up and then quickly disappear as well because this market is so undulating and dynamic. There isn't much preventing someone from building one of these tools, frankly. Many of them are just slick graphical user interfaces on top of an API connection to some important set of data. And they can be very, very valuable. And they can help us do clickstream analysis. They can help us do outcomes analysis, voice of the customer data collection, experimentation, testing, competitive intelligence. These tools, the thing that is their hallmark is that they don't handle a great deal of data, right? That the weight that they can support is relatively low. But as an analyst, if I am looking for a very cost-effective way to collect data, these are great solutions for me. That idea of capability, the amount of data, the data density that a tool can help, does call out these three or make distinct these three different categories of tools. But it is one of two measures that we would use to assess the market totally. We'll talk about the next evaluation criteria, ease of use, in the next lesson.